Hi, everyone. Hi. Welcome to Jazz Congress, second day. How's everyone doing? Great. Yeah. We're going to talk videos. I am your host today, or I should say moderator, Eugenia Han, and I'm just going to give these guys a second to introduce themselves. But as I mentioned, you are here in the Making Engaging Videos workshop, and we'll be here together for the next 70 minutes. And I'll introduce you to the panel. Here's Bryan Carter, Grace Kelly, and Adam Meeks. Yeah, let's give them a round of applause. So let's jump right in. Bryan, you want to tell us about yourself? Just introduce yourself briefly.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bryan Carter, and I am a drummer, a vocalist, a composer, arranger here in New York City. I've lived in New York for about 10 years, and yeah, I play with my band, some of which are in the room, and yeah, that's it.
Hey everybody, my name is Grace Kelly. I'm a saxophonist, singer, songwriter, composer. Really excited to be on this panel and to jump in and answer questions. Let's see, I grew up in Boston. I then lived in in LA for a while, and then I came here to play in the house band for the Late Show with Stephen Colbert in their first year. And then I stayed, and I love it here. And yeah, that's it.
Hey, I'm Adam Meeks. I'm a filmmaker, and I'm the video editor here at Jazz at Lincoln Center. I graduated from NYU in filmmaking in 2014, and I've been working in freelance and then here since August.
Great. So welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I should introduce myself also. Eugenia Han. I own my own visual marketing and branding agency that works primarily with music organizations in the nonprofit world and musicians. And I'm also the former creative director here, which is why I'm here, just coming back to the family for a quick reunion. So welcome again, and thank you for being here. Okay, so I thought we could start by just kind of posing a question for all of our panelists about video content in general. I think everyone loves video. It's everywhere. It's how we consume information, and there's so many platforms out there, and these guys have very incredible experience, not just as musicians and producers, but in the video world. They just do a phenomenal job. But I would be curious to hear from your perspectives, why do you think video content is so important to you in what you do? And the second part is, why do you think video content is important in jazz? So let's start with Bryan.
Hello. Why it's important to me, I like having the ability to control a narrative. Or not even control it, but just offer a narrative. So much of the time, I'll have people come and they'll ask me what life on the road is like. I started filming and bringing this camera around with me because people kept telling me, I want to go on the road with the band. I just want to come out with you guys for a week. I wish I didn't have to work at a bank. I wish I didn't have to be a school teacher. I wish I could just come on tour. So I was like, I should start filming this stuff and showing you guys kind of like what life on the road is like. And why it's important in jazz, this is kind of part two of that. I think it's super important as young musicians, and we're relatively young. I think we kind of represent the young contingency of young touring musicians. It's super important to show people, specifically young people, that this music is still alive and that it's still filled with young, vibrant humans. And we aren't super pseudo-intellectual people sitting on a bus and drinking coffee. It's like we're goofy and we like to have fun and we drink too much and show up late to sound check the next day, and and it just offers a different perspective than maybe what people are thinking of like as their grandparents' music. It's still young, it's still vibrant, it's still fresh, and it's still alive, and it's still very much fun, and you should still come and check it out.
So Bryan, would you say that video content is, there's so many different types of content out there, and getting to know that side of you, would you say that video is the most effective way to do that?
Definitely. I think we live in an age where information is instant. You know, so many people are used to just being like, I wonder what this is like, and just looking it up on their phone. You know, I do it myself. I met David Dobrik, who's a really massive YouTuber. I think he has like 10 million subscribers or something. And I met him in LA, and like I was talking to him like I knew him because I felt like I did know him. And finally my friend was like, Bryan, that's really creepy. Like, you gotta cut that out. Like, you don't know this guy, you just met him. And I'm like, oh yeah. I was asking him about his little brother and his friends. I'm like, how's Verdon doing? He's like, what? You know, so it's really an easy way to kind of like let people into your world.
Great. Grace.
Such good stuff. The video platform is such a direct way to get to your audience. When we open up Facebook, Instagram, social media, what do we see? Lots of videos, and we're just inundated with so much content. And I think videos are a way to really get your message across clearly, quickly, show your personality, and get people to take action or become fans in a much quicker way than in text. And now it's the way that people are just so used to communicating, right? Like, whether it's on Instagram, you're shooting a DM to a friend, a lot of times it might be faster just to do a 30-second video and send that. So we're just getting in the world of technology, things are just rapidly changing so fast, and you're able to create your message in a much more precise way that will just boom, like get straight to it. And looking at some great YouTubers, you know, their cuts are fast. There's a whole science to the way that there's an art to the way that people craft engaging videos, which is why it's so great you're all here, because everyone can do it. It's really, the thing is, what are you paying attention to? What are you analyzing when you're watching someone else's video who does it well? And then how do you bring you and your personality and your talent and your story to the screen? If that is the, if you want to use video as your main way of communicating in the world. Some people might be very camera shy, you know, and then it might be better to stick to text blogging or to have a podcast. There's so many different avenues that you can get your story out there. For someone like me, video is queen, and I love the fact that we communicate through video, because I would much rather speak to the camera and get my message out than writing, because I'm not the best writer. So in my case, it's like, yes, that's the best way of communicating to an audience.
Can you speak a little about your thoughts on why it's important in the jazz landscape?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
of course. Well, I think in a lot of other genres, you know, pop music, people are very used to getting this information through videos and being very engaged with their audience, and I think jazz is a little behind on that, or a lot behind. And
What do you mean, Grace?
And I remember, you know, a couple years ago thinking, you know, I go out on the road, this is great, like great performances, people are coming out, they're enjoying my music, but when I'm not on the road, I had no way of knowing, like I had no way of really communicating with my audience, and I'm like, and I get restless really easily, so I'm like, I should be doing something else to communicate with my fans on a regular basis. Okay, what's like the rest of music doing, and how are they doing that well? And how can I do that in jazz? Because, you know, again, we can all do it, and we can all create engaging videos. So I think, if anything, when I first started creating these videos, it amazed me because people, fans and people in the industry, would come up and say, wow, I loved your video that you posted, and they would mention that more than my new album. Like, that was getting out to more people than an album I worked on for a whole year and financed and spent so much money on. A 2-minute video, an engaging video, was getting more traction, more shares, more numbers, more fans, and I started realizing, oh my gosh, wow, this is the way that I can do it to reach more fans and use my medium and my music and in jazz and get a whole lot more eyes on it. So yeah, I think it's very important for jazz and for everybody here.
Yeah, these are great points. Thank you for that. Adam, you're next.
Yeah, I mean, speaking to the sort of directness of video, and also to sort of how democratic it's become, I think like film and video and television, these like visual mediums have become like the populist medium like of our time, and I think there's something so powerful about the directness of like these images that we can create. I've always felt like I could express myself better in images than in words, so sorry in advance. But I think
You're doing great, Adam, right?
Thank you. But that's one of the things that sort of excites me the most is the sort of democratic nature of the art form. And then I think that video and jazz are sort of a match made in heaven. Like I think as far back as you look in like the history of cinema, you see a jazz score accompanying it, you know. And I'm not sure that I can pinpoint exactly why that is, but the way that they play off of each other, they create something kind of more transcendent, greater than the sum of their parts. And so that excites me a lot in jazz. And then I think that I care a lot about like representation and preservation. In videos, the kind of the greatest tool we have thus far to capture to capture history and to tell the real story of what's going on in an art form and in a medium, et cetera. And I think that we have a long way to go maybe in using videos to sort of properly represent jazz and where it is and the evolution of the medium, but the opportunity to it feels often underrepresented. So the opportunity to use a very contemporary and democratic art form to try and push that forward is really, exciting, and that's kind of the importance of it from my perspective.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. And we'll see some amazing work that Adam has worked on at Jazz Lincoln Center, really showcasing those narratives that we want to put out into the world in just a moment. So the next portion of this panel, I want to show you some videos, right? I mean, we should watch some videos. And what is going to happen now is we'll go through, we'll watch one of Bryan's videos, we'll watch some of Grace's, and we'll watch Adam's great videos. And then I'd like each of you it would be great to just kind of tell us about your process. Creating videos it's not easy, and there's certainly so many lessons that can be learned from doing different types of video, producing it, editing it, performing in it, and we have a nice array of videos that we're going to showcase that with different goals, and it would be great just to walk us through your process. How do you come up with a concept? What does that process look like? How long does it take? What does a filming process look like? All the way through the post-production. And so let's go and watch the first video, which is with Bryan Carter in Shanghai.
Ooh.
Oops, sorry.
There I am. Never looked better. What's up, y'all? We are in Shanghai. Philip, where are we?
We're in Shanghai.
We're in Shanghai, y'all.
We're in Shanghai, outside of our hotel, getting ready to check out. Where are we going?
Martina Da Silva.
Hi.
All right, so can anyone explain where we're going? Because I honestly don't know.
Yuyuan Gardens, and it's like a really historic Chinese temples and historic Chinese garden.
I looked at you, you stole my heart, you were all that I anticipated. I wanted you.
So we're a little hungry. We're looking for a dumpling spot.
Crab soup dumplings.
Crab soup dumplings. All right, food time. Ooh, thank you.
Shrimp balls.
Those are the biggest shrimp balls I've ever seen, and I've seen my fair share of shrimp balls.
I can't be part of this shenanigans.
We are at the Yu Gardens. People love to take photos of me. There's 3 people taking photos of me right now. Thank you. This place is so incredible.
We begin to walk
I legit just almost fell in the giant fishing pond like a few seconds ago. All right, so we're leaving the gardens, and now I think we're headed back to the hotel for sound check. Check this out. Okay, Dan, play a song for us. 1, 2, 3. Dan, I'm not gonna lie, that was incredible.
No, it wasn't.
That was unbelievable. Almost got hit by a bike. Herbert Drums, the finest in drums.
Are you a Herbert artist?
I am a Herbert endorser.
What do you mean? You haven't heard about it?
Ah! I see what you did there.
That's gonna be another one of those jokes that you cut out and say it was really bad.
Desert? I thought you said dessert.
Desert? I thought you said dessert. That's the Lucas Pino. All right, that just about wraps up the vlog. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, you can like and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook using the links in the description below. Young Swangers, we'll see y'all next time.
Hold on a second. Some technical difficulties. Give me a second. Bryan, go for it.
Yeah, so that was a vlog that I shot when we were in Shanghai. The thing with vlogging is that there is pretty much no pre-production process. You don't know what's gonna happen until you're there. Usually what happens is in the morning, I think I tried to wake up Alfonso Horn and Matisse Picard, and they were like, we're not going anywhere. And I got Dan and Phil Dizak and Martina to go out, and we went to the U Garden. And yeah, a video, I think that particular video was shot over 3 days. So we saw a compilation of things, and the actual full YouTube video is 10 minutes long. So after shooting, usually it will take me about 1 to 2 days to edit. At the time this was my second or third vlog. So at the time that I shot this, and I look at it now and I see so many, I'm sorry, I know you're a professional editor, I see so many mistakes, like things that I just would not do now. But I watched a lot of YouTubers, a lot of Casey Neistat, a lot of David Dobrik, you know, and seeing how they took cinematic things that we're used to seeing and film. You know, how you have like a 2-minute YouTube video shot on a cell phone, and they have like J cuts and L cuts, and they have like all these sequences, and trying to be in the moment and think about how I'm gonna edit it later. So I will never ever tell someone what to say, and Dan, and Benny, you guys can back me up on this. Like, I'll never be like, Benny, say this. But there are times where I'll be like, can you say that again, and can you slow it down? Or like, can you actually say that whole thing you just said again, but just come stand over here? Because I think it's a little bit easier, but kind of thinking, trying to be in the moment, but think ahead of what's coming. And yeah, when I'm done editing, I'll try to send it to people if they're heavily featured and be like, is this okay? Especially if I'm making them look kind of foolish. Like, I sent that to Dan, that clip when we shot it, and he told me that I couldn't put it in, but I did it anyway because we're friends, and it's better to ask for forgiveness later. Right. So
Where's that
Dan
clip?
Chmielewski thinks he's better than John Coltrane. Everyone write that down. No. Just joking. No. But yeah, that's kind of my process while vlogging, and it's very different than if we're trying to make a music video or if we're trying to promote something. But like I said, a vlog for me is supposed to be just like a window into our world, like what it's like on the road, on tour. So.
Your editing is amazing. How did you get into that? How did you learn how to edit?
So on this trip, we have like a professional filmmaker on the road with us, and every day I would go downstairs and I'd be like, how do you do this? How do you gotta get, I wanted to do that thing, and he's like, what are you talking about? And just literally watching YouTube tutorials for hours on end, and there are some really, really great ones. There's a guy named Ryan Nangle, and I think I've stolen so many of his tricks that I owe him money. I should write him a check. But just
How do you
watching
spell
those
his last name for the folks?
Nangle, and also another guy named Peter McKinnon. He's a great YouTuber, and he breaks down a lot of the things that he does in his videos, and he'll go back and be like, wasn't that cool? Let me show you how I did that.
Great. And we can all see that you had a great time in Shanghai.
We had a lot of fun.
Good, good.
Not even a ton. Like, that video probably has like 1,500 views or something, you know? And it probably got like 5,000 or 6,000 views on Facebook, you know?
And it's an interesting question to think about because I think everyone has their own measure for success depending on what your goals are. So, I mean, to me, that's a very successful video. I think
Right. The measure for success for me for that video is like we were walking down the street once with my friend Lucas Pino, the guy you saw at the end, and this group of kids walks up to him and goes, "Desert, I thought you said dessert," and starts laughing in his face. And I was like, it was effective.
Right.
There you go.
Right. Yeah. Okay, so let's go into our second video with Grace Kelly. Great.
I've been waiting in the hall. I've been waiting on your call. I wanna kiss you. Hey, 'cause I miss you. Hey, 'cause I miss you. Unchain my heart, baby, set me free. Unchain my heart, 'cause you don't care about me. You feel like home when I look into your eyes. Your kisses taste like sunshine. You tell me I'm so bright. Well, you feel like home.
Thank you.
So much fun, Grace. It's amazing. Can you tell us about your production process?
Sure, absolutely. So when I was going into making this this project with my team, it's called Go Time Brooklyn, and we have Go Time Brooklyn 1 and 2. It started summer of 2018. And I remember talking to a video friend of mine who was a collaborator, being like, I want to do this new project. I want to do it with guests. I'm really inspired by the way Snarky Puppies rolled out their videos, and maybe we could do it like that. I'd never done anything like this, like staging a production or producing anything like that. And we started riffing on that, and he was like, yeah, it's a great idea, but you know what would make it even cooler if we did this video element and then broadcasted it on Facebook Live. Because at that time, I mean, right now, live streams are like super, super hot. And last year, like Facebook Live was super, like pushing like crazy. And now YouTube Live and everything's competing for these live streams. So I think the thing about being an independent artist is we have to do so much when we prepare for projects, not only artistically to put together all the music, but it's expensive, you know, if you're financing your own stuff. So the idea of going into the studio and kind of doing it the way we all know how to do, spending all that money, and then making music videos and spending all that money, and then hiring PR people and spending all that money. I'm like, I don't have that money. So I was like, how can we do this in one project and get all of those goals accomplished? And so this looks like a high highly produced thing, but believe it or not, there were only 2 camera operators. It was done that was a live performance. Most of the songs only got 2 takes. It was done at Systems 2 in Brooklyn. We took the actual audio from that performance, and that's what got mixed. You can see that because we staged it in a studio, we were able to have great equipment. My video guys came in, and they brought their own lights. My parents set up all the seats. I launched a Pledge Music crowdfunding campaign to fans, and they paid for this video album. They fully financed it. And one of the tiers that they could get from the store item was to be a guest, at the studio. So it was a massive project in a way that there was so much to plan, but I'm really proud of it because it accomplished all the goals. So basically, we recorded all this, brought all the musicians together, had a very small audience there because I wanted to bring that the excitement of the audience in the room. And we all had wireless headphones, and then it went out as a Facebook Live. We had 100,000 people tuned in all around the globe commenting. After the Facebook Live, I had a pop-up screen that came up that said, hey, if you dug this, you can go to Pledge Music and also contribute to the campaign. And then we turned the audio into an actual CD, which I sell at gigs, and I sell autographed copies online. And then after the live stream, we split up the video so that it came out as YouTube clips. And some of those YouTube clips now have 500,000 views on it. And by integrating guests into the picture, it was going out to all of the guests' audience as well. Like Leo P, he's got a amazing band, Too Many Zoos, that has a huge following, and we had already been working on this collaboration together. And then, because my goal was to really start building my numbers and engage my audience online and get them to become fans and then feed my already existing audience. And what I found in this process, especially going forward with crowdfunding and getting my audience involved, is that my fans turned from fans into super fans. I mean, I was talking to an artist about crowdfunding recently because she was like, oh my God, it's so expensive to self-finance. I don't know how I would feel about going forward with crowdfunding because I feel like people would be looking down on me or blah, blah. And I was saying that crowdfunding has been the greatest thing, not just financially, because fans are paying for the record, but to see that process of fans going from fans to super fans. I mean, it was amazing. For them, a lot of them were like, wow, just the idea that you would let us in on the process and you're showing us the B-roll and we could comment live. And so now every time I post a video, like fans are emailing me, they're commenting, they are so engaged. So that was, but this production really it was a very small team. It was very homemade. One thing I did really make sure of, what you were talking about earlier, is that me and my team planned. So my keyboardist is also a great engineer. He mixed the whole record. We talked about all of the audio beforehand and making sure none of the instruments would bleed into that. We talked about, camera-wise, what the shots would be. So I had a lot of conversations with all the separate teams. What was it going to look like? How we were going to decorate it? We even send out notes to the audience of what colors to wear. So it's like, it almost feels like you're planning for a wedding or something. I've never planned for a wedding, but I can only imagine, it's amazing how many little things come up. But in the process of planning this, I think it was 3 or 4 months of really planning, it went incredibly smoothly. So I think you need to list out what are your goals, what do you want to, what do you want to artistically say, what do you want your audience to feel, how do you want the experience to happen. So that's the very first thing, and then you start to break it down of, okay, who's going to be my team members, what's the budget, how are we going to make this happen, and that's the whole planning process in order for something to go over really smoothly. And then how are we going to roll this out online, and what's the goals for when we roll it out,
I really love what you said about once the full-length video was done, you extended the strategy to incorporate these clips that were then produced to, you're extending the shelf life, and it's also a different way to engage your audiences and your fan base. I'm curious, from the day you started thinking about this video and you entered into the pre-production phase all the way through
Yeah.
the last clip that was distributed and published, how long did that take?
I mean, it's still actually getting distributed and published because, we all work so hard to create that album, to write our music, and I was thinking, okay, how can I milk this for as long as possible? We just did so much work, right? So then the live stream came out. People can see its entirety, but we started rolling out the clips, every month, every 2 months, so that there was just always kind of something new. I think at this point, most of the clips are out, but this was published as a live stream in March of 2018. So it's been a really great way to have this content and then rolling it out. And now I'm working on a lot of other content and just experimenting with formats. And but it's been a great way to continually feed my fan of my music.
Yeah, that's great. I want to show a little bit of another one of Grace's videos. Very different in style, but I think it's really interesting. And let's watch it and then have a conversation. I urge you all to watch it online, the full-length version, but for the sake of time, I want to make sure we cover everything. Cool, right? Battle of the Sexes, and I thought I really wanted to show this one because it's an interesting way of sort of tapping into what's happening in the rest of the world or in the film world and sort of finding that intersection. And I noticed that you published this either like a week after
yeah.
a week after the release date of Battle of the Sexes. So I would love to hear about, you obviously planned it and you thought about all the different points that you wanted to, with the movie coming out, and I just would love for you to talk about how that sort of came together.
Sure, I'll kind of go through this quickly because I know there's a lot of good stuff going on. This video is actually like the opposite of Go Time Brooklyn in preparing for it. It actually came out, I think, 1 week or 2 weeks after the Battle of the Sexes movie. I got a text from a drummer who used to work with me being like, hey, I just saw this movie and I just thought like Battle of the Sexes would be this hilarious thing. So it wasn't even my idea to create this parody video, but as soon as I read Jordan's text, and he wasn't saying for me to do it, he was just like, that could be a cool idea for someone. And I was like, yo, that is hilarious. And then I started thinking, I'm like, oh, maybe I could do that. And then, of course, Leo came to mind. I've been doing a lot of collaborations with Leo, and he's our thing together works really well because it's goofy. We integrate like dancing, blah, blah. I was like, who can play, this male part? Okay, if there's not many people that I could think of, he'd be perfect. This shoot actually happened in 2 hours. Leo was playing a gig in Boston with his band, and it was the only day that we could meet up. Our videographer, it was just a single camera shot on a stabilizer, was like, hey, there's a tennis court that I know of in Boston. Like 2 weeks before, I asked my parents if they could come help. So my dad, who's in the front row, actually made our costumes. And then they were in that scene that you saw, like bringing all the props. He did all of that, which is incredible. So I took a bus to Boston for 4 hours.
Where's Dad?
He's right there in the front. Bob Kelly. I took a bus to Boston, met at the tennis court. We started immediately, and we only had like an hour before Leo had to go to sound check, and then I took a bus straight back to New York. It was a marathon day, and Leo and I hadn't even really talked about the music. I came up with that little line the night before on the couch. So this happened like very, very quickly, and we basically wanted to create a parody video and, you know, celebrate this great story and movie and pop culture, and it was goofy and fun, and we wanted to bring out our personalities, and Leo is always down to do something really wild. So we're like, let's try to recreate it. And the funniest thing to me is a lot of people mention this video to me because it's gotten a lot of traction and views online.
How many views, Grace?
I don't know, it might be like 300, 400,000.
A lot of views.
And again, these are all organic views. There was no paid advertisement. There was no targeting ads. And actually, that's one of the big things for Go Time Brooklyn. I was like, I don't want to spend money on PR. I've been burned so many times. So how can we create great original content that's just going to reach a lot of people? So there you go. So that's what we did. And there's a lot of people that say to me, like, I love that Battle of the Saxes video, and they don't even know it was a parody. They just think that we went there and we dressed up like that. So it's even a hit that way. And I'm like, what? They still think. But that's how, I guess, engaging and kind of unusual it is. Because, yeah, I've had a lot of people mention, like, are you that girl in the tennis courts with the saxophone? But we went into it being like, this is going to be a funny parody video.
And I think it's a great example. I mean, you just saw two totally different types of videos that she has done, and it has engaged very different audiences. And I'm sure there's overlap there. So I think it's important to experiment and, you know, have some fun, and I think it's a really great example of that, so thank you. And we are on to Mr. Adam Meeks. This is a really lovely video. I'm excited to show this to all of you.
Brownsville is one of the toughest neighborhoods that you can grow up in. When you face violence every day, when you walk past the drug-addicted neighborhoods or walk through them, when you are in abusive situations or you witness abusive situations, that causes trauma and stress. And oftentimes in poor neighborhoods, there's not the opportunity to receive the therapeutic services that are needed to deal with those situations. And that's when you find that the students, the young people, often immerse themselves in the arts or music.
My sword and shield, I'm gonna lay down my sword and shield, down by the riverside, 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 down by the riverside.
When I teach the kids, it reminds me of my upbringing. You know, music was like an escape. That was the only place that I wouldn't be able to think about everything going on outside, all the tough conditions. Music was my escape. So I can be that same vessel to the kids, and that's what I love about it. Because a lot of the kids go through a lot that kids shouldn't go through. So I'm just happy that they can be in this space where they can just be themselves.
Education goes through ebbs and flows in terms of money and funding and budgets and budget cuts. And whenever there's a budget cut, the first program to go in most schools are the arts programs. And yet that is the program that will really impact students the most, but it's the first to go. And it's my belief that the leadership of a school has to have the conviction that if anything has to go, the arts classes will be the last to go, because that is the one area that will engage the students the most, that will keep them coming to school, that will heal them when they're going through the trials and tribulations of the life that they live. The Jazz at Lincoln Center program, it changes the atmosphere of a school. It elevates the culture. It just transforms the spirit. And so we love it. Zip codes do not determine giftedness. Giftedness is in every community, in every color, in every form.
Really beautiful work. Adam, tell us, how did you source this story? What was that like?
Well, the seed of the story came from our creative director, who we were putting together some sort of year-end fundraising videos, and he learned of our involvement in this cultural arts academy in Brownsville. So that's where it came from. But after the initial seed of it, it was a real process of getting to this final piece. It's working in documentaries is significantly different than working with something that's premeditated and planned and scripted or whatever. Normally for a 3-minute video, you wouldn't think it would take as long as it did take for us, but we probably shot, I would say 6 to 8 different days we shot for this. And we interviewed, I would say, probably close to 10 people associated with the school, and then ended up using, including 2 of them in the final video. It was a kind of a refinement process. And we would shoot, and then I would come back and edit, and I would see what we had. Then we would, follow a different lead, and we would go out and shoot that. Eventually, we kind of recognized that we felt like the most, we wanted to let these incredible women of color tell their own story, and that felt really powerful to us. So once we settled on that, it was just sort of organizing things around that. Myself and some of our creative team, we would go out and shoot, spent some time at the school, spent some time with the principal and some other people involved. And then I tend to edit these things kind of based around music still. So that I'll Fly Away piece and the Down by the Riverside piece, once we decided upon those, everything else kind of pretty organically flowed from that. Despite us being an institution here, we're still a nonprofit, so we have pretty limited funds for these things. So it became about how to kind of get out of the way, no camera tricks, no expensive equipment, just kind of letting these people tell their own story and letting the story tell itself. I think it was, the other thing that was a process was figuring out how to represent Brownsville in a way that was true to the history of the place and the sort of dangers of the place and where these kids come from, but also it's as I was said when I first spoke, I really believe in how that we have a responsibility when we portray, especially in documentary, when we represent a certain place, and that Brownsville has been working very hard to shed its label as the murder capital of New York, and so it was about how to tell the story truthfully but also uplift. And so there were so many different versions. There were like murder statistics at one point in the video, and there were like sort of kind of sensational sound effects and different things, and we just scaled back and scaled back and scaled back until we felt like we had the right balance. And I'm proud of that balance now, but it took a long time to get there. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when you say that it took a long time to get there, it sounds like you were shooting for a bunch of days. So that sounds like 10 interviews you mentioned, and 2 ended up being in the video. So what was the biggest challenge, do you think, in terms of like why was the process the way it turned out to be?
I think it was because we were, it's just a very delicate balancing act to tell this. And we knew kind of broadly what the story was, and we knew what the neighborhood was, and we knew, but until, in the documentary form, like until you are sitting across from a subject and they say zip codes do not determine giftedness, as she said at the end, you don't really know what the end of your video is going to be, and you don't really know how you're going to structure it. So it wasn't really until we had the pieces, and I would come back and I'd put that in the end, and I went, great, that's our ending, you know. So I think it was just kind of an investigation into the neighborhood and into the school and into how to tell it
Right.
the
I
right
mean,
way.
documentary filmmaking, it's such a different process.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, it is.
So I imagine the post-production is probably very different than Bryan's process, right?
Yeah, I think it probably is. I've done a fair amount of sort of scripted and planned stuff as well, and it's a very different process, just in terms of not really knowing where you're going.
And trying some things out and going back into
Exactly,
the editing room.
exactly. I find a certain amount of freedom in that, actually, and I now like to kind of approach my scripted stuff in a similar way, where I throw out the script once I'm in the edit, and I just sort of see what I can make with the footage. And I find a lot of freedom in that. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope everyone enjoyed those videos and got a taste for different types of content. Not done, just putting that out there. So the next section of the panel, I really, really wanted to touch upon marketing and distribution. I think all of you have mentioned a little bit about it. Well, Adam, I would love for you to talk about collaborating within an institution with departments who are specifically responsible for marketing and what that process was like for this video. But if we could, Bryan, if you could start and just kind of tell us about some of your marketing strategies, whether it's with ads or social media outreach, partnerships, and what you have found to be really effective.
Right. Do you want to pull up that?
Yeah, sure.
So again, with the vlogs, these come out every couple of weeks. There's no real marketing besides just throwing it on Facebook, throwing it on Instagram, hoping that it will catch on organically. Some do, some don't. That's just the nature of vlogging. Here's another project that I actually worked as a producer on, Zildjian Cymbals. It's the largest manufacturer of cymbals in the world. They came to me with an idea. They were like, we're going to launch a new cymbal. We want a video. We want you to just talk about why this cymbal's important. And for me, I was like, I think that this cymbal has defined the sound from 1930 until today. So we should show how this cymbal has transformed music. So I called a friend at Limbo Productions, and we sat down, and 9 months later, we got this. Very, very different. Very, very different from the vlogs when you're working with, a 6-figure budget and you have a crew of 70 people. This video, I think, across all social media channels and YouTube and stuff, I think it's garnered around 4 to 5 million views altogether. And with that, a lot of the marketing was handled by an outside PR firm and the Zildjian company, and just deciding how they want to do it. I think a third of the budget was allotted for Facebook. We talk about conversion and monetization a lot in the video world. So a lot of it was just like converting people who had searched drums into Facebook or into Google and somehow getting them to that video and hoping that from that video they'll make a purchase. And then the other 2/3, one was paid to artists. The people that you saw in that video, Matt Cameron, the drummer from Pearl Jam, Soundgarden, a lot of like 90s grunge. He played in Nirvana. Rashid Williams, who's the drummer for John Legend. Joe Saylor, my brother, the drummer over at Stephen Colbert with Jonathan Baptiste. Just putting that together, and then I think the last third of the budget was just used for like print and NAMM and trade conferences and that kind of stuff.
Great. Grace.
Oh, that was so great. I think it's really important to create the best video, the most authentic, the most you video possible, because if you start with great content, it will spread. Right. And that's the whole thing. Bryan also said the word organic reach. And when I was talking about my Go Time project, that was, that's the goal of like, how can I just get people sitting at their computers and phones to press share? Because, they feel whatever, in awe, happy, sad. There's so many emotions you can bring out by storytelling and having your video, and it doesn't even have to be fancy equipment. You could just do it on the first videos I started doing in my pop-up series were with an iPhone. Sometimes my dad filmed them on the iPhone and natural sunlight. A lot of these clips that you're seeing have, a little bit more higher end equipment, but don't let that stop you from starting. The most important thing from this panel is that you guys start this, because if you don't start it, then this panel wasn't helpful if you want to make videos. So yeah, my thing is just having great content to begin with, and that organic reach, like the YouTube videos, it's gotten a 500,000 plays without any money being spent besides on that actual production. My team then did bring in one person to do targeted ads and stuff like that for some other videos of mine, and through that process, I started to learn more about targeting audiences online, and I think probably the best thing that you can do and start doing if you haven't already is gathering emails of your fans. So whether at live shows, you have an email list, or online, you can basically create some type of form that gets people to a mailing list URL, and they can fill it out, because that's super valuable, because then you can go through MailChimp and you can target those people on your social media platforms. If you feel really unsure about how to do that, I'd say try to find someone who really specializes in it and focus on what you do best, whether that's the performance aspect or writing the music. That being said, I'm a very hands-on type of person, so I'm not really one who likes to just be like, oh, they'll do it. I want to at least know the process of how it's done, and then be able to instruct someone or learn from them. So whether it's video editing, sitting there, doing the videos, watching YouTube tutorials, get educated yourself, because then with any team member you bring on, I'm able to better instruct them, right? To be able to say, here are my 5 reference videos that I want my thing to look like, or here's how I think these are the 5 related artists that I think we should target. So getting people on is great who specialize in that. They can really take it to the next level, but it first needs to be your vision. Even if you're a bad editor, I'm like not by any means good on Final Cut, but if you can do like a rough, right? Like a rough demo at home, you can hire someone to spend way less time to just make it look pristine. But it's your vision that goes forward, because otherwise you might be spending so much time with someone else and it's their vision, and then you're just spending money and you're getting frustrated in time. So spend that time yourself and watch those YouTube tutorials and go on Amazon and buy a package of 5 lights for $100 and set them up with your iPhone, That way you can I'm all about getting started, because so many of us, and this happens to me all the time, it's like, I can't do that, I can't do this, I can't do that. Well, they have a whole team, blah, blah, blah. But this year, I've told myself, no, you just got to jump in, do it, get pumped, do the best you can, and then you bring on people who specialize in things, and you learn from them, and you do the thing, and then you have something.
I just want to say, this is all really great equipment, but this is an amazing camera right here. It is. So.
Yeah, I agree. Some of the best videos I've seen are filmed on iPhones.
And it's always about the content, right? How many of us have seen a shaky video and it's a cute dog video or a cat one, and it has 50 million views, and it was not filmed on that.
There is an audience for those videos, yes. Okay, Adam, please.
Yeah, as Eugenia said, here at Desert Lincoln Center, we have a marketing team, so I guess my advice would be to hire a kick-ass marketing team and then just smile and nod. Yeah, I don't have a lot of experience marketing my own stuff necessarily, but I can sort of talk about the way we sort of came to our ideas for how to market and distribute some of these educational videos that we made. So we started putting together this first one that you guys just saw, and then we got into a meeting with our marketing team and said, we also have 8 other interviews, and we have all of this stuff that we shot. Is there a strategy for doing more with this, creating a campaign around it or something? And we sort of came up with this idea to release that first video first as our kind of flagship video, and then to start rolling out sort of short vignettes, essentially, which are minute long, focused on one of the singular interview subjects, and centered around their sort of concise narrative as it relates to our mission statement and what we're doing. So we sort of, we hit all of these, all the socials and YouTube and our website and targeted emails, with the primary video first and then these vignettes following. And I think that it was a really successful campaign, and it seems to be a really effective way to stay, to continue to tell the story, to make use of all of the work that we did do and all of the great stuff that we captured, and then just to stay engaged with our audience without necessarily pestering them with the same stuff over and over again. So that, as to more specific distribution decisions, that is our marketing team, and I'm not involved with that, but it was really nice to be able to sit down with them and problem solve and say, how can we work together in this, and how can we both get something out of this?
Great. And the last question I have for everyone, we have a few minutes left. I want to make sure that we have a Q&A session for all of you. Is what is one piece of advice that you would give everyone in this room, that you would leave them with around creating engaging videos?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just do it. I think you mentioned it. Just jump in there. At first, I thought it was going to be this massive uphill battle, but it's not that hard. Just do it. And before we go, I just want to shout out some other content creators, Tony Glossy over here, Nick Fenzer. These guys make incredible videos and have wonderful, wonderful audiences. So.
Yeah, I'm going to totally...
Oh, Tony Glossy. He's sitting right here.
You guys can meet after the panel.
Yeah, his latest video just got 1 million views on Facebook or something, right? And it's yeah. And Nick Fenzer has been making videos forever. So great content creators.
I would also say just get in there and do it. Even if today you're like, all right, I'm gonna go live on Facebook when I get home tonight for 2 minutes and just see how that feels. And for I also totally echo Bryan within the beginning, feeling like, oh my God, this is so daunting. I have to save up to have like a 7-camera shoot, and it's gonna look like this, it's gonna look like that, and then that becomes such a big list that, you know, it doesn't happen. So kind of jumping into the thing that might seem scary, if being in front of a camera is scary, but you've always wanted to do it, you know, just get on your iPhone and do that thing, and also kind of create some concrete goals for yourself, right? Like, okay, I'd like to expand my fan base online by X amount. How am I progressing? I'm going to schedule every Monday to go live for 30 minutes so it becomes this consistent thing. So yeah, goals and just starting. I certainly have learned a lot in the last 2 years of jumping into the video world, because I didn't have much before that. I've really built that up in the last 2 years. I've learned a lot from my pop-up series all the way to producing a full show. And there is nothing like the real life experience, as you know, in music, and also, you know, getting your content out there for your audience in the video world.
Yeah, I very much agree with those pieces of advice. And then I think the thing that I've recognized recently, and I guess has been on my mind, is the work has to be process oriented and not result oriented. Or, you know, if you're too focused on the numbers and the number of likes your video gets or the number of plays your video gets, you're going to go insane and you're going to stop making stuff. It really has to be falling in love with the process and engaging in what you're making and pouring yourself into that. And I think from there, if you love it and if you are, you know, invested in the details of the craft, and the rest of it sort of works itself out from there.
Can I add one thing?
Yeah, sure.
I think it's also really important to bring out your uniqueness, your you-ness, right? So it's like, I think the thing about videos, and the reason why some of these videos that are just filmed in people's homes and, you know, they're hilarious and or whatever, or they're just somebody sitting in front of their iPhone playing or singing the most amazing solo, and all of a sudden it has tons of views and shares. Like, people are really bringing them to the table, and it's easy to, nowadays, we can spot it from a mile away when someone's trying to sell something, like, you know, this is Dasani water, you should drink it, it's really good for you, versus someone having an experience and getting to be a fly in the wall, watching that vlog, or, you know, seeing something creative done. So that's really important. I think just bring you, and don't try to be someone else, because your audience will really connect with that.
The authenticity.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very important. Well, we're going to start the Q&A session. I want to first thank everyone for being here, and thank you to our panelists. You guys were amazing. I hope all of you enjoyed that. And I see that we have a mic, so I think we just kind of line up or something. Yeah, go for it. You're right there.
First off, thank you. I just want to say that it's so nice to see, like, fun and silly, because as we all know, jazz people can be really cerebral sometimes. And I think what's happened with me is there's a part of me that's really silly, but I've been afraid to, like, let her out on video for fear that people would say, oh, you know, she's too silly. But seeing this was fun, and it made me laugh, and it made me want to, like, hang out with you, and it didn't make me take you less seriously as a musician. So thank you. I just wanted to say that. Oh, and I'm Angie Wells. I'm a vocalist, by the way.
That was so nice.
Let
Thank
it out,
you.
Angie. Let it out.
Excited to see your videos with that jacket, too.
I'm weird. Just let it out.
I love it.
I love it.
I'm watching.
Film it, yeah.
Hello, Christine. I'm a vocalist. I was just wondering if you had insight on about, like, hashtags. What type of hashtags should we use to get people engaged in our videos? Because I have a hard time. I feel like I put too many hashtags and nobody looks at what I post. So is there any good tip on that?
Hashtags are definitely a great tool to get your content spread. There's a lot of online kind of automatic generators that will give suggestions of what to use, and then if you start to press on those hashtags and you start to see what other people who are doing top posts are also using as hashtags, that's a good one. The more following that your page has, the more it will rank higher, so people will see that. So in the beginning, when I was launching my Instagram, they would never show up in the main page. But you might want to then look at the hashtag that has, like, instead of 1 million people posting hashtag dog, it might be like hashtag dog life heart heart heart, and 20,000 people who do that hashtag, because then you might be able to show up in that. So there's definitely a science to it. I'm not a complete expert at it. I'm always kind of trying out different things. I remember at one point, one of the videos that me and Leo put up, we didn't do like any hashtags, and it just was showing up on the homepage that you go to of like videos you might like. And I don't know how it got there, but I guess it got enough views in that number, in that time that it showed up. But that was with no hashtags.
I started my own hashtag Young Swangers.
Yeah.
And thanks. And it's worked out great because it's built a community. So if I want something to be seen by fans, if I put that hashtag there, the community is gonna see it. Today I use drums. That's me. All right. Today, this morning I put a video up, and it was hashtag New Beat Tuesday, which is a new thing for drummers. And it got reposted a bunch. And so now the video on the Zildjian page, it was posted 2 hours ago, and it has 11,500 views. So it's like making sure that you're going broad, but not too broad. Try to connect with communities.
That's a good thing for branding myself too. I have, when I started the pop-ups, Grace Kelly pop-up, and first it was, I was the only one who would use that hashtag. But for your branding purposes, from day one, you want to have your own hashtag that then fans will start using. And
Cool. Thank you.
Would you say that more is better? Because I feel like there's some different opinions on. I mean, some posts you see like 30 hashtags, right?
Yeah.
In your experience, what has your experience been like? Have you ever used like a ton, and then has it worked? Has it not worked?
I try to say like 7 to 10 at the very most.
Yeah.
yeah, me too. I don't really know. I'll throw them up there.
All right. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? Okay. Oh my God, we're like right on time, guys. Thank you so much. Oh, is there a question?
Let the church say amen. Right. Oh, okay, we got one more. Just joking. The church don't say amen.
Hi.
Hey.
I probably just could have shouted. Anyway, where do you find good editors? And do you think that there's a time limit on like from when you film something from when you release it? So it's like 2 questions.
We worked on a TV show together.
Yes, we did.
I'll jump in. I think I've found good editors who really get my style, and we kind of read each other's mind just through my circle of friends. When I first moved to LA, I found a cat who does audio engineering, video editing, also happens to play all the instruments. We really got along. But I think you can even find freelance people on like Upwork.com who can do...
What is it?
Upwork.
Upwork.
They might not be able to do the fanciest things, but again, like for $20 an hour, if you had your basic cuts, they might be able, with instructions, be able to do it.
Film
That being
schools.
said, yeah, he would probably really have the answer.
I was gonna say go to NYU and put up some flyers, and you'll get like a bunch of talented young kids who wanna help. Yeah.
Also, Fiverr is a great app, but film schools too.
Film schools, Upwork, Fiverr. And then time limit? Do you think there's like...
It depends on what you're making.
So, for example, I was in Dubai in August, and I shot tons of awesome video. I have no idea how to edit it, but I still have like tons of awesome video. Like even of me like jumping out of a plane, I have no idea what to do with it. But it would be great to be able to like make a video about that. But I'm like, is it too late to even do that because it was in August?
Not at all.
No.
No, never too late.
I'm definitely a fan of getting things like that out, because otherwise content just builds and builds and builds. But obviously, if there's something like a Go Time Brooklyn session, that's going to take longer to edit and all that. But the good thing about what your situation is you have it. It was captured. So then it really just becomes taking the actions to get it out and edit it.
It's also Dubai. Like things that we think about as like vloggers is like it's always hot there.
Yes.
You know, so it's not like they're gonna be like, that wasn't in the winter, it's snowing now. Like no one's gonna know. You
That's
know?
true.
And you might even be able to start by just taking a few little clips and putting them up on Instagram as separate videos before, if you were open to that, before waiting for editing like the full thing. You can use it in so many different capacities on different social media networks, and then roll out the full thing on YouTube or something.
And the city is full of amazing editors.
I
So
can never find them.
they,
so thank
those
you
are some
for those
good
tips.
resources. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us.
guys.
Have a great rest of Jazz Congress. Thank you.